this is at the motherboard level, and the
Yes.
impact to a data center is
Multi-million-dollar impact on an annual basis.
billion. No, this is
No, for each one, multi-million-dollar for each
sure.
data center.
I'm thinking about the
impact.
industry.
The industry, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a multi-billion-dollar reduction in energy usage.
Yes, absolutely.
Today's entrepreneur is someone I've come to know over the last year and respect for their ability to find novel technology and help it come to market. And in particular, to solve problems in efficient ways. In many ways, the problems that Udi Daon is helping solve are ones that function at a level of technology that many of us don't regularly interact. So we're going to explore how we can make electric vehicles more efficient. We're going to talk about why solar and microelectronics are a fitting sort of market for the technological innovation that Daanaa, his company, is attempting to revolutionize. We're going to talk about how we can get three-phase from a single piece of the electrical infrastructure that traditionally couldn't accomplish just the level of magnitude that is possible with his device. That and more awaits you inside today's SunCast. And I want to say, if you have not yet subscribed to the show, I hope that we earn the right to be a podcast you regularly return to. And thank you to all of you who do subscribe, because you get notified twice a week when we drop bombs just like this one. Leaders on the front lines of the clean energy transition, changing the way we consume and use electricity and improving our lives in the process. Let's get ready to tune in and tune up your skills, Solar Warrior, on today's SunCast. Well, Udi, I never would have guessed that getting up early and going to the keynote on workforce development at Intersolar would bring such a serendipitous meeting as this. Thank you for joining us on SunCast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I very clearly remember just engaging in banter, general conversation, because the universe led me to sit down at your table of the 40 at the breakfast banquet last year at Intersolar. And very soon I made my way around the table to sit beside you, to look at your pamphlet and your portfolio, and started asking questions that I told you, I think, are in that conversation, I'm going to have you on my podcast. Well, 11 months later, here we are.
You did, sir. You did. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Well, I appreciate all that you are trying to accomplish. But for those who are unfamiliar with what you want to accomplish, we're going to have to unpack it for them and in a relatively concise way. We've got less than an hour to try to help them understand how you're changing the world. So let's start at the top. What is the problem that you are trying to solve?
For 150 years, students have been taught, electrical engineers were taught that power conversion is done using the magnetic properties of the electromagnetic field. And structures look in a certain way, and you need coils, and you need structures in order to do that, and excite one side to accept the other side. And that leads to inherent inefficiencies. That leads to inherent limitations of the amount of conversion you can do, its size. It provides chemistry constraints, right? That in order to get to accomplish it in a very effective manner. And that limits our ability to basically go from very low to very high, or very high to very low, which is what we're doing as a society with batteries and solar cells.
When you say very low to very high, what metric are you using? Low what to high what?
For example, very low would be your solar cells, which are 1, and if you put some of them together, then you have 3 volts. Batteries are usually 3 to 4 volts.
Volts, okay.
And high volts, we're talking the voltage, in the voltage universe. And we're converting from basically very low, like 3 or 4 volts, to very high, that would be 400 volts, 800 volts.
Right.
Your grid tie, which is 110 or 220, 240 in some cases, volts, and AC. So those conversions are basically, if you think about it, it's like almost 100x. Like from 4 to 400, right. That's 100x, right? And that is something that, in order to get done today, you need multiple steps.
Yeah.
Every step takes its own. It's like converting currencies, right? you go to multiple conversions,
Everybody
you
takes their
give
pound of flesh.
commission to everybody takes a pound of flesh. Exactly.
So also, this is one of the reasons why, despite it's easier to package and ship, solar panels are a collection of cells, because you need multiple cells to stack the amount of voltage that you need to come out of the device.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Right now, what happens is that you have multiple long strings.
Yeah.
But it's like the old Christmas lights, if you remember.
Oh,
like
yeah.
one of them goes, right? If one of them goes, they all go, right?
Right.
So if one of them is interrupted even slightly,
Yeah.
that entire section of the panel doesn't work as effectively.
Yes, that's right. Thank God for diodes.
Well, the diodes themselves take energy, right?
Yes, that's right.
Out of the process. And even then you have, then now it's a question of division. How low can you make the unit of energy production? How small can you make it in order to increase the resolution of production?
Okay. I want you to help. Actually, you use terms that I really need you to define for me. And one of them, that I love, actually, so I'm glad we were there, is resolution. I understand resolution because I use a camera, and I understand what it means to have better clarity. But what does it mean to have better resolution from an electromagnetic perspective?
So let's put the electromagnetic aside for a second and focus on the conversion action, right?
Sure.
When we look at solar panels or electric vehicles, in order to get the conversion in a place that you can have a good input, the devices today are constrained by their input. You need certain amount of voltage in order to kickstart them, right?
Yes. Like an inverter, it doesn't wake up until a certain amount of voltage comes in.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So now what happens when you don't have that? Right? Now you're losing all that potential energy.
Losses,
Exactly. It's not produced. It's not collected.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, this is why products like Tigo exist, right? Like they exist to buck and boost.
Yes. But they still but every time you do that, you need that minimum voltage.
Right.
Question is, what is it? What is it? And the finer that minimum voltage is, the smaller that number, right?
Yes.
The higher the resolution in this respect. It means if you have, let's say, 60 cells in a panel, just to make it easy for math, right? I know that I'm talking about something that's very old, but easy math, right? If you have 60 cells and you divide it by 3, you have 20 cells per string, right?
Yes.
So now every cell is dependent on the other 19, right? But if you divide it instead of that by 10, so each string is 6, right? So now each cell is dependent on 5.
So then the resolution goes from 3 to 6.
So resolution goes from 3 substrings to 6 substrings, or to 10 substrings, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's when we speak about
10,
resolution.
That's
what we talk
10.
about.
Sorry.
Yeah. 3. No, it's okay. 3 to 10, right? And now you have fine resolution. It's like, so you have the same way that you talk about pixels in your camera, right? The finer the resolution, the higher the resolution, the sharper the image, right? So in this case, the higher the resolution, the higher the amount of energy that you produce, because you eliminate those dependency losses.
Right. And this is the argument again for using string inverters versus central inverters in a utility scale project, because you eliminate the downtime for impacts on the product. Yeah.
Exactly. Now that impact happens, usually people spoke about between panels, etc. And now we're talking about inside the panel. However, until today, you couldn't really do that because there was nothing that would be able to take that low voltage, that 3 volts from, let's say, 6 cells, and boost it to any usable manner.
Yeah.
Right? That the utility can do, and also do it in a cost-effective
manner.
Right? And that's exactly where we fit in.
Now, I want you to, therefore, now that we have some better clarity and definition around the construct of the problem, introduce us as laypeople to Daanaa, which is D-A-A-N-A-A, just for those who are curious, Daanaa.
Yes.
Introduce us to Daanaa and why it's helping to basically eliminate this infrastructure, this resolution problem, or rather improve resolution of this technology.
Yes. So one word about the name Daanaa, it actually means wise in Old Farsi.
Oh, wow.
The founders speak Farsi, and they created that means wise, so wise resolutions, and hopefully we're all following those footsteps and make wise decisions.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the construct of the product itself, what we do, if we zoom out for a second about the core physics that is used in power electronics today, we said that they're using the magnetic properties. Right? That is the exact thing that we're changing. That's the novelty about the technology. We're using the entire electromagnetic spectrum and create, manipulate, control, augment it's called the near field reactive electromagnetic space. And in it, we shape our fields the way that we want to, and then we rectify it back to, essentially whatever we want, anything under 1500 volts. So that allows us to take 3 volts and convert it to 400, let's say, in a single step. Today, you will need to collect 20 or so and boost it, and then collect some more and boost that as well. We're doing it that with 3 volts to 400 in a single step that is very efficient. That's more than 95% efficiency.
Udi, I am not a physicist or even electrical engineer. So could you explain a little bit in layman's terms kind of what this could mean for transforming the way we interact with electrons?
Think about something that we all use almost on a daily basis, like a vehicle, right? Solar cells, as we know, are very low voltage. They're less than 1, right? But the battery that we use in the electric vehicle is 400. How do you translate 400 volts? Thank you. How do you translate from one to another? If you put it on uniformly on the surface, the uniform of the surface of the vehicle, as you know, is curved. So they produce differently. Yeah. So you always produce the minimum amount possible. The way it was done until today, because you have a limited surface and it's not uniform, so it's curved, right? You were only able to produce very low voltage out of those surfaces, out of those roofs. Now, and therefore only charge very low amount of power into the low voltage battery, right? Which is not that usable. It's fine if you want to just trickle charge your battery, but it's not really meaningful from your day-to-day
It's
mileage.
the reason. That's the reason you don't see the surface of every electric vehicle covered in solar panels, because there's no real way to harvest that electricity. And
even though it makes sense, these are large surfaces sitting in the sun, right? Mm-hmm. So why not?
And in particular, not just commercial, not just personal vehicles, but commercial vehicles, large tractor trailers with huge real estate.
Exactly.
This is a problem that needs to be solved. Okay.
Exactly.
I'm following.
And now there's a lot of potential energy there that can be harvested and used, right? But the power electronics do not support that. The microinverters as we know them today, even though they're a great product, they're not suitable for this problem to be solved. So it needs to be small, and you need to be able to react to the elements faster of, intermittent shading. Like, you're driving a vehicle, a tree goes by, that's in milliseconds. Right? It's not in minutes, right? And the shape means that cells that exist in different places on the surface would operate slightly differently.
Right.
So that limits today the amount of energy that you can produce. And the question is, what can we do about it? What if I told you that there was a way to add 20,000 kilometers, 13,000 miles a year to your EV without looking even at a charging station? Would that be interesting?
Just from superficial solar panels being harvested.
Just from the amount of energy available on your car.
On the surface that's available, that's visible.
On the surface that's available on the car, yes.
And so what you're saying is that the Daanaa power conversion device allows you to take ultra low voltage inputs and essentially repackage them so that the battery sees them as high voltage inputs.
Exactly. So provide the high voltage to the battery, and at that point, the battery knows how to use that for regular charging.
It feels like you're creating more energy than is available. If it's possible then for these solar panels that could harvest electrons from the surface of the car to harvest enough electrons to add 20,000 kilometers a year, why has this been a limiter? Like, why hasn't Elon figured this out yet?
You have two separate problems. You have the problem of collection, and then you have the problem of transmission. Problem of collection is that the surface isn't uniform, and it's, again, the Christmas light problem, right? But just with different levels of production. So you always regress to the minimum. The other problem, which is even worse in a way, is that that low voltage needs to be transmitted to the battery
Yes.
in a voltage that it knows what to do with.
Right.
If you're going to provide the main battery with 3 volts, it doesn't know what to do with it. You got to give it something it knows how to deal with, like 400.
Yes.
So we can do that at the cell level and basically give the battery what it needs. So you solve both the energy generation and the storage. The energy generation and the transmission at the same time. So essentially, we can produce 400 volts, power a 400 volt unit with the 3 volt input.
Are you saying then that essentially at the solar cell level, you can provide at 3 volts a 400 volt output?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Hang on a second, because I've heard you say this before. And so I'm going to give a minute for any listeners to just sort of let it sink in. I want them to sort of rewind it, listen to you say it again. Okay, yes, you're back in present moment with us. A 400 volt charge from a 300 volt unit or a 3 volt unit?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the underlying physics problem that you guys have solved to accomplish this?
Now we're back into the very foundation of what they teach at schools about how to do power conversion.
Yes.
So today, power conversion is using magnetic induction, resonant or otherwise, as the core transmission. But we all know that it's not magnetic; it's electromagnetic, right? Fields that exist, or those of us who are a bit more familiar, you know, it's not just magnetic, right? It's electromagnetic fields. If you think about, do I interface with it on a daily basis? Yes, radio waves are electromagnetic waves, right? Your cell phone is electromagnetic waves. What enables this very conversation is utilizing electromagnetic waves.
Yeah.
However, that is the wave itself. When you go very close to the emitter, very close to the source, it's called near field.
Yes.
And that is the area where we innovated. We manipulate and control that entire area to transmit as much power as possible between our two components. And then we'll be able to rectify it to whatever it is that we want because of that electromagnetic manipulation. That's how we do it.
So we're going to stick with the EV application. We're going to get into solar in a minute. You've shown that you can power a motor and add up to 20,000 kilometers a year with onboard PV power.
Yes.
That
These are
is
two separate statements, but yes, we're able to power a 3-phase AC motor with a single DC 3 volt battery.
That's amazing. Wait, you're going single DC 3 volt battery turns into 3-phase.
Turn into 3-phase 400 volt to power the motor.
Okay, now I have a question. How, for perspective, how big is this device? And if you're not watching on YouTube, I apologize, but how big is the device that can accomplish this?
I got one.
Let's see it.
This is it.
Well, hang on. No, but actually, hold the real device up. I want to see. Not the plug that plugs it in.
No. This is the thing.
This is the size of an electric vehicle key.
Yes.
I mean, this looks like a Tesla key.
Actually, yeah. Here's my key.
Jeez. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So if you can't see this is literally just hold up your own, electric vehicle key, your Tesla key, your whatever. Not even it doesn't have to be your electric vehicle key. It's that size. It looks like a child's whistle. It looks like.
Let me give you another comparison, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? We all have our laptop chargers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That laptop charger is capable of what's called 65 watts, right?
Yes.
That's the amount of power that it does.
Yes.
So this is about 10% of that size already.
Yes.
And more than that, this thing, when in an electric vehicle, this will handle 600 watts. So essentially, tenth of the size, 10 times the power.
All right. So, all right. So I want to put this in context.
Please.
Help me understand the impact on the vehicle itself. Like, what does this mean for the way we think about electric vehicles, the manufacturing of them, the potential for resource extrapolation if this technology is on board every electric vehicle?
There are several impacts. This is foundational. Okay? There's several impacts. Essentially, the BMS, the battery management system, is now done on a single battery level. That means that all the batteries are operating in parallel. So now, and you just add the power, which means that you can reduce the amount of batteries and therefore the cost of that system inside the vehicle and still get the same range
Right.
and even more power.
So more power, which is different.
More power.
But you can improve
Yes.
the performance of the vehicle while reducing
Absolutely.
the weight, which is part of the performance improvement, and the batteries required, which is both a resource constraint and a future sort of life cycle problem.
And the major part of the cost.
Yes.
The batteries are the most expensive component, right? Exactly. What's the impact of
this would be like
10%
saying you
of
can
that?
produce solar panels without the cells.
I don't know,
but
that would mean that you can produce more power from way less cells.
So again, I guess I was going to ask, like, is that also the same extrapolation for the solar industry, that we could effectively have smaller solar panels producing the same effective yield that we have in larger panels now?
Yes.
Holy crap.
Because you're not wasting. You are not producing something that isn't there. We're not creating energy from nothing. Right? I want to make sure that we're very clear about that.
Right.
What we're doing is eliminating waste. And if you're eliminating waste, you need less.
So effectively, we've done our best at eliminating the waste at the macro level, the far field, and now you are at an sort of the microscopic magnetic level, now improving the efficiency of the device.
Within every device, you can make it work to its best potential at any given moment, irrespective of what its neighbors are doing. That's the impact here.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I told you my mentor, John Bonanno, had Empower Micro. They effectively were trying to do chip scale inversion. This is a version of that, correct?
Yes, it's the cutting edge of that intent, if you will.
Amazing. I understand. I think anybody listening now understands the direct application of the kind of sort of power conversion technology you're working on, near field electromagnetic, boosting this power at the cell level. That is in and of itself fantastic. I definitely understand the resource improvements at the silicon level and at the chemistry level for batteries, for cars, etc. Is there? I imagine there are other applications that this technology can be applied to. What among them has really captured your attention in terms of impact to like global economy?
It's a wonderful question. And one of the things that we're working on right now is the integration into data centers and onto the AI chip itself. As you know, the amount of power required for the growth of AI is expected to increase sevenfold in the next few years, right? What people don't always know, I mean, everybody knows that a lot of it goes to cooling, right? But why do you need cooling? You need cooling because of the waste that is generated in bringing it from the grid to the chip.
Right.
Right. And that's exactly what we're solving, because that 3 to 400 works, well, in reverse, right? So we can go from 400 to 3 in a single, very high efficient step, right on the motherboard where the chip is. So you eliminate ohmic losses, you eliminate distribution losses, and you eliminate the multiple conversions that happening along the way. And that is a crazy number. That's more than 20%.
That is remarkable. You referred to this in a call that we had once as you're integrating into vertical power delivery. What in terms of you said, percentages, like, are we talking reducing power consumption? Did I just hear you say 20%?
20%, yeah.
Double digits.
That's the estimate that we have at the moment. When you talk about the distribution on the board itself,
this is at the motherboard level, and the impact to a data center is
multi-million-dollar impact on an annual basis.
Billion. No, this is
for each one, multi-million-dollar for each data center.
I'm thinking about the industry.
The industry, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a multi-billion-dollar reduction in energy usage.
Yes, absolutely.
So just for those who haven't been following along, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, all missed their carbon goals this year for one reason: AI. what you just said the Daanaa device can do is essentially help them achieve their voracious appetite and growth while still hitting their carbon goals.
We can definitely help them play a significant role in that direction. We can't solve all their problems, but that one we can definitely help with.
Yeah, because effectively,
you want to eliminate
all of
the waste.
Look, all of the power efficiency gains we've achieved over I don't know how many decades are entirely negated by the need to power the AI data centers.
Couldn't agree more. All the shift to electric vehicle, all the shift to solar production, wind production, all of that stuff is going to be washed away in the next couple of years with the amount of data centers coming up.
There's another term that I've heard you use before called omnipotency. I think this is a good place for us to interject it. What does that mean?
Omnipotency, basically, for us, it means, and excuse my poetic license, we do a lot of things. So there's like 18 or 20 different devices embedded into this.
Yes, we're going to get there. I have another question for that.
That's what omnipotency means. Like you don't need 20 devices to do something.
Yes.
It's one programmable device.
Yes. And is it true that it can provide bidirectional power?
Of course.
Effectively meaning not just bidirectional, sort of like the way we think about maybe car to grid car, but bidirectional 3 volts to 300 and 300 to 3.
Yeah. Yes. So,
what's the application of 300 to 3?
So for us, by the way, it is like vehicle to grid to vehicle.
Oh.
It is bidirectional, right?
Okay.
And we can play, and so we can help there as well. That's something that we look actively into integrating it.
Okay.
Right?
Elon, are you listening?
So when we look at the application set, almost everything around us is dealing with conversions. We all have, around you in your own office, there's 10 converters that you see, that you can touch, right?
Yep.
And they're inside the devices. There are still multiple more that you don't even know that are there, right? And if you have a simple device that you can program the functionality to, there is a simple communication protocol that we have that can allow you to basically program the output that you wish, based on the input that you have, or vice versa. Then what does it do to your design time, to your product release time?
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to worry about it. When you look at the chemistry, we show, for example, that we can take multi-chemistry, different type of chemistries.
Like battery chemistries.
Batteries. Yeah, battery chemistry, sorry. Multiple different battery chemistries at completely different state of charge and state of health, and still produce you the 400 volts that you need. Right? That means
but that's not supposed to be possible.
Well, it's not possible with the single stage components that you have today.
Right.
This is not magic. This is physics. We're just on the cutting edge of it.
Yep.
So we are able to do it with a single, simple, hyperpotent device. That's why it's hyperpotent, because otherwise it'll just be, your run-of-the-mill converter.
Udi, one of the things from an entrepreneurial perspective, and this is where now I think we're going to turn the corner a little bit. We'll probably come back at some level to the technological innovation, but I'm not an engineer. I'm not even a self-professed geek. I am a Sherpa and a champion for geeks who don't have access to you in that way. So, but I can only understand the technological detail to a certain level. So I'm not going to try to go super duper deep. But the thing that comes up for me as a coach and an entrepreneur myself is a thing that I discussed with my friend Brian Hassan at DexMat, right? When he created a technology that effectively replaced steel with carbon fiber strength technology, he has a core product that can be used in thousands of applications, but he's got a core team that can only focus on a few. So how do you think about product market fit and then the markets that you are best capable of serving with the team, time, and capital available to you?
That is a wonderful question. And it's a constant balancing act, right? That goes down to strategy and focus. That one of the things that drive us is impact, right? And so when we looked, let's use the examples of the markets that we're addressing. We built the capability to address those markets incrementally as we were developing the technology. We knew that from the get-go that this is where it could go, right? That this is where we can serve, but you cannot address it on the day-to-day. So we built it in a way that allows us to do a few things. Our business model is essentially think about like ARM, but for power, right?
Yeah.
We have the core design, we have the core implementation that we can now implement into multiple industries. But when we come to choose it, we think about what's the level of maturity, because we don't want you to discover things now as a customer or as a partner, right? We want to be the closest, the shortest amount of time to market, the least amount of investment to get to market so you can enjoy the benefit. And on the other hand, right, how can we use that as a springboard to develop our technology further?
Yeah.
So we have to be very focused.
As a CEO, how do you drive that focus? I'm literally thinking like, coach those who are you are now in their earbuds and they are trying to imagine if they had a product like this that could address, because many of them can address multiple markets and verticals. We all choose. I'm a media company. I choose to focus on clean energy because that has both my expertise and the level of impact I believe I can achieve by helping be the best storyteller in this industry. How do you focus your team?
So I'm going to start by something that sounds philosophical, but you can't make anyone do anything.
Yeah.
They need to choose to do that. Mm-hmm. So the question is, am I creating an environment in which they make that choice?
Yeah.
Like my management style is basically, I learned that from a great woman that I worked with in the past. It's basically nose in, fingers out. Right? I want to know everything, and I'm going to ask every question, and everything needs to be transparent.
Yeah.
Definitely in the decision making, but I'm staying out of your way. It's your job. You're here to do that. You're way better than I am. Than I'll ever be at what you're doing. So I'm staying out of your way. So if we have the transparency on one hand, right, and the visibility and the accountability that goes with it on one hand, right, and the freedom to operate, then it should be easier to find people who are motivated by their own mastery to take a task and run with it to the glorious success that they can achieve. And that's my job as a CEO, to create that environment and the environment and the systems that allow people to thrive in that case. If I'm going to try and do it, I'm going to mess things up.
Find people motivated by their own mastery. That's really beautifully stated. Nose in, fingers out. That's what your mentor said.
Yes.
That's another one. I never heard that one. I love it. It's one you hear, immediately understand what it means. Nose in, fingers out.
Nose in, fingers out, man. And I am blessed with a nose. I would, but I stay out of their way. So here's true. Like, just happened a couple of months ago, or last month. We just won Company of the Year, Startup of the Year in British Columbia, right?
That's amazing.
Great achievement.
Congrats.
Thank you. And it's amazing, right? It feels really good. The teams feel really good. And people call me. And what they don't know, sometimes I have to tell them that I had nothing to do with it. The team did it.
Yeah.
The team found out. They went through the interview process. I wasn't even involved. I wasn't even at the ceremony. Right?
Wow.
Because it's all the team that does it. They're driven to do it. And that's all you can ask for.
I don't want folks who have stuck around for, 30 plus minutes to mistakenly believe, especially after what you just said, that this is your idea. How did you get involved in Daanaa?
So I had previous companies, medical devices, drug development, all that kind of stuff.
Serial entrepreneur.
And yes, I have. I'm stung with a bug. So I was an executive in residence at the University of British Columbia's accelerator program. So basically helping startups to identify their markets and work with, get to market, etc.
So cool. Yet another thing you have in common with Brian at DexMat. Keep going.
Yeah. And along the way, my personal focus is how to teach the CEOs to be CEOs.
Yeah.
Right. So they're effective in what they're doing and they can grow and build. Mm-hmm. One of the days, one of the gentlemen came that run the program came to me and said, "Did you ever speak with the boys from Daanaa?" And I said, "No, because power electronics isn't my thing." But they said, "Go talk to them because of systems." And I started speaking with them, and I found that they're very coachable and they know their limitations. And one day, because of political reasons that prevented people from travel, I asked them, what exactly is this that you're doing? And then started, um, basically 6 weeks of physics lessons, PhD level, that I'm like, I need to understand what on earth is going on.
Right.
Um, so what we tried to do here in half an hour, I had I had the luxury of 6 weeks of beating on the head with it.
Yeah.
And at the end of which I learned three very fundamental things. One, they're amazing people. I just love them. They're really good people, right? Two, this technology is insane. And three, there is no way that I'm not going to be involved. I just don't know how.
I love it. Yeah.
So it proceeded to like, all right, there's some cash crunch, so I helped with that. But then I said, all
So
right,
you're the first
you guys
investor.
focus. Yes.
Yeah.
You guys focus on the technology, whatever the business model that was. I said, let's put it on ice for a second. I'm asking for your trust, and I will see what we can do with it, and also bring the rest of the investment.
Can I make I'm going to make an assumption here. It sounds like these gentlemen were trying to make it work, and just reading the tea leaves here, they thought they had a deal on the table. They needed that deal to provide cash flow to keep the business afloat. And
yes, they need to see that progression forward, and they were a little bit stuck.
Got it. And so you were able to bring in an injection of cash to say, hey, let's just pump the brakes on the commercialization part right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
That was the wrong business. That was the wrong business model and product to go with.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It's a good technical product,
right?
But the wrong way to approach it. And so it's fine. Then, based on the knowledge that they had at the time, there was. And that was my role in the conversation.
And then when did it become clear to everyone at the table that you should be the CEO?
It was sort of like, we suddenly like gradually came into that, right? It's not that I showed up.
They were like, hey, you're here every day. You're in all of our meetings.
Exactly. You might as well. No, through those conversations, and then, it became very clear that their skill set is on the technical side. And all of that other stuff is something that is not the skill set, and there isn't really a reason for them to grow into that position if they can be the masters of the universe in a different thing, right? Why learn something that you're not going to be the best at?
Right? Meaning like how to build a business.
How to build a business.
They're technologists, right? How many businesses had you built up till then? Or been involved in, invested in, that kind of.
Well, these are two separate questions.
Oh,
I ran to, and I'd say probably like more than 10. I don't know.
More than 10 that you were personally involved in, like getting off the ground as a startup.
Getting off the ground as a startup.
And then probably dozens that you invested in.
Yeah, putting that aside.
Got it. Do you recall, because I remember that you weren't always an entrepreneur, but you were always a tinkerer and sort of an efficiency-minded person.
Yes.
You tell the story of like your younger days in boarding school. There were some names, some early labels placed on you. But do you remember the day that it hit you that you needed to kind of go out and be like really own the entrepreneurship piece?
Well, that was actually it's a very personal and emotional day that it was for me. I was working at a company, so that was in my mid-30s when I was always self-motivated and self-driven. I always created things, always made things happen. If they were on a stage or in business or with customers, like I always had initiatives that always came to fruition.
Right.
So I had the skill. I didn't know that that's a thing.
Yeah.
And there was one day that I was I'm going to say that I was mistreated in the workplace that I had, and I found myself I had two kids and two young kids, and I found myself, basically holding my head, almost crying, because of the way that I didn't see a future in it.
Fair.
Said,
you felt is it fair to say you hit a growth ceiling?
I had a growth ceiling. That was clear. Yeah, and more than that, I hit a cultural. I'm not going to say gap, because we were completely orthogonal in our values.
Yeah.
That I said there cannot be progress here. And I did not know, I couldn't name it at the time, right? But that's why I had that cognitive dissonance that said, I'm torn. I'm literally in tears here.
Yeah.
And so I said, that ends. And I want to create the workplace that I want to work in. Bringing us back to the beginning of a product that I want to sell. I want to work in a place I want to create the place that I want to work in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And you are kind of self-described as interested in creating stuff and motivating people.
Yes.
If you look at the Venn diagram of like your skills and what makes you a CEO in a specific type of business, is there a way for you to characterize that Venn diagram? Like the sweet spot that you sit in?
Yeah. How to be reflective and not
you told me like
at the
deep
same
science.
time,
You
right?
told me like you like deep science tech.
Yep. So my internal test is if an idea makes me either chuckle or be nervous or be queasy, I'm like, I'm in. I want to learn more. There's something here that I don't understand.
Tell me about the chuckle though. Like I could get the deep anxiety part, but what's the chuckle?
Yeah. No, the chuckle, like, you say something that sounds crazy, like, I'm gonna integrate it.
Oh,
like,
right, yeah.
It sounds good. Like, of course you did.
I'm gonna create a device that will mean you never have to go to a charging station again because you'll harvest all the energy you need from your car.
Of course. Exactly. Of course you will.
Right. Yeah. What's the real business?
Hold on.
Okay, I get it.
How? Right? How?
Yeah.
Right? Now I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because I want to believe people. Right?
Yeah.
If you say something like that, you truly believe in it. Why do you believe it so passionately? And if I'm judging you, then I'm doing the wrong thing here, right? So I want to learn. Now I might say, okay, I disagree, and that's fine. But now I'm curious, and I follow my curiosity in that respect. So if you want the Venn diagram, it's there. If there is a deep scientific thing that isn't trivial, that is really sounds insane and crazy to make, I'm in.
Yeah.
I love that. Right?
That's beautiful.
I love that. Yeah.
How much did it take to get this thing off the ground? Like, I think you've gotten through a Series A now, getting ready to go into Series B. How much investment and capital has it taken to achieve this?
So surprisingly, relatively very little. So we raised just shy over 8 million US.
Wow.
Throughout the 5 years existence of the company. Yeah.
And how much of that is non-dilutive?
No, this is all the dilutive. The non-dilutive I didn't count yet. That was about like 3 more.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So you're looking at close to 11 million, but only 8 is non-dilutive. All right, sorry, but 8 of it is equity based.
Dilutive, yeah, it's equity based.
Amazing.
Speaking, which is very little considering what we've accomplished.
And you actually have a device in your hand that works. That's tremendous. This is like, I mean, I hope that people appreciate this. Like what you have in your hand is like Series C level delivery. Well, with a Series A investment.
We take pride in being it goes back to your focus question, right? We were focused on our execution. And it wasn't that there weren't dead ends or we didn't make decisions that ended up costing us money, right? It doesn't, life isn't always as gorgeous as people might want to portray. But we were smart about it and got, and got a lot done on very little. So.
Yeah. I remember I asked you, what are the pressing needs and scalability challenges you're addressing? And you basically pointed on 2 things that you've talked about earlier. Maybe you want to expound on them a little bit more in the little bit of time we have. You said single battery with an AC and a DC motor drive. And then, and another example of application was instead of connecting 100 in series, we provide AC variable 3-phase with a single 3-volt battery. And both of those really blew my mind. Is there anything you want to expound around the single battery with AC and DC motor or driver? And I guess what I'm asking is kind of what makes that hard and why is Daanaa uniquely positioned in the marketplace now because you've figured out how to fix it?
There's the main driver to make things smaller is because if they're bigger, then you have losses and losses create heat and now you have to manage the heat, etc. Right? So if you can put a couple of devices together and get it done with things off the shelf today, it would be big, it would be bulky, it would be inefficient.
Right.
So you have expensive and generates heat that you have to deal with. So that's not really attractive to anyone. Right? That's why things are done the way that they are today.
Yeah.
And so this is part of the thread that we're solving here of solutions. If you can have a unified unit, right, that you can then replicate across if you have a fleet of vehicles and you say one needs a small, medium, and large batteries, right? But you don't have to have a dedicated team to design all the power electronics around them in a very unique way. That brings you faster to market.
Yeah.
Right? If you reduce the need for the amount of batteries that you need to have in the vehicle, then it makes the vehicle cheaper, more accessible, and help drive the change that we all need to see, no pun intended. And these are the kind of impacts that we want to drive in the industry.
The French are going to love this because they had a moderately successful BIPV incentive and market back in the early teens. So did the Italians. The U.S. never really got on board. The Canadians did, in fact, install a lot of BIPV up in Toronto. You've effectively cracked the code on vehicle VIPV, vehicle integrated PV. Is that accurate to say?
Yes, but for us, there's no difference between the two. It's just what is it on?
Yeah, that's the extrapolation.
What's the surface you on?
Yeah, for me, this means basically every surface is now open game, open season for PV everywhere.
Surface, exactly.
Yeah. I love it.
When you think about one of the challenges with BIPVs, let's say the two big ones, and I might be committing a slight sin here for simplification, but let's say the two big ones are, one, the surfaces are not uniform and they're susceptible to change all the time, right? You have traveling shades, you have bird crew, you have all sorts of things, right? So the finer resolution that we talked about earlier, right, gives you the ability to create a lot more energy. The other side is they have the reliability and distribution, right? Instead of rewiring the entire building with high voltage, et cetera, you can just stick it on the socket and it works. That's it. So the distribution into the wall is much simpler, and of course, very, very reliable because you're using technology that is now deployed in vehicles for 20 years.
Amazing. So, I'm gonna switch gears here because I spend a lot of time with you, just sort of asking, probing, pulling back the layers. I may have one or two as I look through my notes that I want to throw out as the final questions, but
please,
I definitely want to get a little bit more of the sort of the philosophical CEO coach mentality from you, because you've done so much work on 10 plus startups as entrepreneur in residence. Like there's some, I have to imagine in the final 10 minutes, we can extract some of those gems for our listeners. You told me that everyone needs a boss, mentor, and coach. Explain.
So first of all, I didn't come up with that. One of my mentors told me that.
Good. Well, then let me frame it this way. Is there any advice that you've received that for you has been really critical in how you therefore execute as a CEO?
Yes. And those are connected actually, Stuart. I come to learn in some respect the hard way is that at the end of the day, the only thing that truly matters is value.
Is value.
It's values.
Values. Okay. Yes.
Values. Yeah, values. Like what actually drives you as a person. Like, and people say, "Oh, that sounds very airy fairy," but this is a business. And so, no, they're not conflicting, because it comes down to values. If people do not align with you, conflict is bound to happen. And if your values aren't aligned, it's really hard to create trust. And trust is the foundation of conflict resolution, right? Because we can disagree. If it's coming from a trusting place, then we can resolve it and move on, right? But if we don't, and there's a fundamental difference in the way that we see the world, right? Then it might be irresolvable, and now we have a problem in running the company, right? So I encourage people to do that personal journey themselves and find out who they are and what drives them. And it doesn't mean that everything needs to be perfect. It means that we need to understand it. Because if we understand it, we now can drive it, use it as a tool for recruitment or as a filter for not recruiting, right? Someone, or let someone go because of that. And that's critical, I think. So values.
Yeah.
And I learned that again from another one of my coaches, which goes back to why everybody needs a boss, a mentor, and a coach.
Yeah.
We're all accountable to someone, and someone needs to look at us from the outside and tell us how we're doing.
If you're the founder, though, how do you get a boss? That means you got to go raise
a board. Money. No, well, yes, but there needs to be. You need to essentially learn how to build boards, which is something that I'm very invested in the local Vancouver community as part of my chairmanship of ASTEC.
What's something interesting that you've done that probably most of the folks you work with on a day-to-day basis wouldn't know about you?
I was in the Himalayas, and I took myself walking to Everest Base Camp, 120 clicks in the desert, up to 6,000 meters, vertical, all by foot, just because I couldn't not do it.
Were you alone?
Yes.
Alone.
Not smart, alone. Yes. So it was that was
All right.
a long and emotional and a spiritual and physically grueling that ended up with a mountain opening up in front of me, and
Magic.
that's yeah,
Magic. What do you nerd out
that's
about
the kind
when
of
you?
stuff I like to.
What do you nerd out
Sorry.
about when you're not working on Daanaa?
Oh man, so many things. I'm a naturally curious person, and my son jokes that one day that we were on the bus and he saw me reading on jet engines. I like technology. I like politics. I like business. It's whatever's first. I love history, so I nerd a lot about history.
Yeah.
One of
What's your
my favorite shows.
how do you
One of my
nerd out on history?
I read a lot.
Hmm.
There's a few shows that I listen to. They're actually
Like
traditional
podcasts.
radio that well, they now become podcasts as well, but they started as traditional.
Do you-
And my favorite is actually one in Israel.
okay.
It combines two things. It combines history and blues.
Huh.
That is great, right? To talk about topics, they bring up topics. It's usually like oriented around a person who was impactful in the world, and sometimes even in minute, but fundamental way.
So you like music?
And also, I love music. I
Okay.
play
I have a
multiple
podcast for you.
instruments.
You play?
Please,
What do you play?
yes, drums, guitars, piano.
Oh, amazing. Magic. So I have a podcast that I listen to, and I'm going to try to find it. Oh, you know what? I know it's in my feed actually here because I just teed up this one.
Okay.
This podcast is amazing. Hang on. It started out as 60 songs, but it's called Songs That Explain the 90s. It originally was like he was going to take
Okay.
this podcast is brilliant, Udi. You're going to love
Really?
it. The latest one that I
Good.
teed up is Complicated by Avril Lavigne, right?
Okay.
But Lose Yourself, the episode on Eminem writing Lose Yourself, that's a good one. Just, Songs That Explain the 90s is amazing. It is qualifiably, it's fantastic, fascinating. The guy does tremendous deep research, and it's storytelling at its finest. So I encourage you, tee up Songs That Explain the 90s. It is wonderful.
I will. I would go right now on my phone, but we're using it to do
I know.
this.
Are there
I'm going to mess things up.
on that line, are there any books that you've read more than once and or that you gift regularly because of the impact they had on your life?
Man, so this is going to be on the both. It will sound trivial and banal, but so one of my mentors, actually, funny enough, is Gandalf. I paraphrase and quote him a lot, uh, in a variety of ways. So the Lord of the Rings, I actually reread recently. Jokes aside.
I'm watching it with my kids now. Yeah.
Oh, good. I love the books. I'm a purist in that respect.
Yeah.
So two very influential.
It's crazy the license they took in the movies, honestly. My kids they read all the books first and they're watching the series of The Hobbit and they're like, wait, this comes from the Lord of the Rings. This isn't even in The Hobbit.
This isn't in The Hobbit. Yeah.
They're like the white guys or the white, what do they refer to him as? Gandalf's peer. Anyway, they're like, he isn't even mentioned in The Hobbit.
Yeah, Saruman is not in The Hobbit.
Saruman's not in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
One of the things that I reread recently, I visited some classics because of the world politics, the direction that things are taking. I reread basically almost all of George Orwell's books.
Yeah.
So I revisited that in the last couple of months.
Is there one that stands out that you're just like, wow, that was prescient? Still 1984?
Well, so if there's one thing that I would recommend people to read is article on English and how and I'm going to summarize it to say he's basically going around and saying we're misusing and the language is being misused to represent truths that don't exist essentially by deliberately. Why go and describe something in 90 words when you can say it in 15?
Called Politics and the English Language. You can actually find it at the Oral Foundation, and we'll link to it.
Exactly. I highly recommend everyone to read it. It's a starting of a journey that, if used right, allows you to start peeling off crap that people say.
Yeah.
Right? And get to the truth.
Amazing. Any business books that stand out for you?
So I highly recommend for anyone, always, it's a classic, but it never fails, the five dysfunctional routine
Yeah.
by Lencioni, right? I
Mhm.
referred to it early on. It's, I think, so fundamental that people need to be, if not very familiar with it, then find a way to interact it into their, to weave it into the day-to-day action,
Lencioni will
way
go
that they
down in
run the
history as
business.
one of the greatest business writers of all time.
Yes. Yeah. That is so fundamental.
Yeah.
And I referred to it earlier when I was talking about trust and accountability. That's where it
Mhm.
comes from.
Do you have a morning routine or a ritual that sort of guides you or
I
anchors you?
try and often fail to go to the gym, but it's just
Yeah.
a little bit of exercise, not going nuts. That and swimming is
Yeah.
usually my routine. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that a lot of folks are going to be really intrigued by the just who you are and what you do. Are you open to folks reaching out? And if so,
Of course.
where do you best engage with folks? Where do you like to be found?
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I don't do social media other than LinkedIn.
Yeah.
There is a thing then that says no solicitation, please. So that's my only
But
request.
do you
I'm very
do you
approachable.
check do you check messages like inbound when people try to
Yeah,
connect with
yeah,
you? Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
I
cool.
do. I'm fairly accessible there. As I said, no solicitation. That's where I draw the line.
Absolutely. If you could leave every person you meet with one thing, what would it be?
Smile, man.
Cool.
Life is too short not to have fun with it.
Yeah. And what will have changed as a result of the work that you're doing?
One of the driving forces for me is to leave this place in a better shape than I got it. And it doesn't matter if it's an organization, a company, or
Right.
the planet, right? If I can be one of the things that contribute to that, leaving it in a better shape than I got it, then I can go in peace.
Efficient change. Mr. Efficient.
Oh, don't. That's so uninspiring.
Oh, Udi, thank you. Thank you
Pleasure.
from all of our solar warriors, our SunCast tribe,
Thank you.
the climate champions who tune in each and every week to meet inspiring leaders like you. I, on their behalf, want to honor the time that you've invested in us. Great. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And if I can give back, I'll always try.
Well, there you have it. Transforming the way we think about the electrical field, the way we transform energy from low voltage to high voltage. Udi, the Daanaa team are radically rethinking what's possible at the magnetic field level. And I felt like I learned so much in this interview. I hope that you did as well. Once again, Udi, thank you for the time. Thank you for helping show what it looks like to be a curious, intrepid entrepreneur, investor who can get out of their team's way and empower them with the right tools and systems and a culture that inspires. I know for one, I aspire to be able to do that. And I know that you listening also are in that camp, or you wouldn't be here. You want more. You are here because you expect more of yourself and of those around you. So thank you for investing in the time here with us. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. There are over 750 episodes like this in our back catalog. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to the show and go over to mysuncast.com where you can listen to our entire back catalog. And it's now more searchable than ever. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to our sponsors who help ensure every week that the only thing we ask you to pay is attention. They pay to keep the lights on. And I'd encourage you to go check them out as well. mysuncast.com/sponsor is where you can learn more about the ways they're bringing transformational technology into the world and how you can benefit from their offer to help you do the same. Every week, twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we bring these transformative technologies and entrepreneurs to the forefront so that you can learn from them. Remember, you are what you listen to. Thanks again for showing up, Solar Warrior. It's half the battle.